Hello.
Hi, happy Wednesday.
It's Tuesday, I think. Oh, sorry for the listeners.
Great start.
Well, it is Tuesday when we are recording this, but you obviously listen to this in the Wednesday. So hello, happy hump day.
Hi, happy hump day. How have you been?
I have been good, I think. Yeah, just usual. I'm tired always, but otherwise actually good. I'm still enjoying the rain, which is just blissful because I can't deal with any heat. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not really enjoying it because I'm about to go on holiday in less than a week and it does not look nice. There's just rain every single day and I don't like it.
Oh no, where are you going?
To Berlin.
Oh, is it raining there as well? I'm just talking about the
Yeah,
UK. Oh no.
it doesn't look great. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it clears up by then. I do have one thing I wanted to ask you, and we've kind of discussed it very briefly, but I want to hear your opinion on Barbie.
Oh. Oh. Okay. I just posted something in my story that I reshared from an Instagram account. Because I really liked the movie. I had absolutely no idea what to expect when they first announced that Barbie's going to come out. I avoided all trailers. I didn't read anything about it. I simply did not know anything because that's, in my experience, the best way to experience a film. And first I thought, oh God, it's going to be a children's movie only because there were so many children in that cinema on a Saturday at 7:30. Like they were so young. One baby was crying. There was literally, I think, a baby in the cinema, which I'm like, why? Anyway, the film itself, I found it really good. I think it's a good message for girls now, younger girls when they watch it. Ryan Gosling's performance, I do not like Ryan Gosling, but that performance was just chef's kiss. Honestly, he was really good, especially if you know that he's been in a lot of films where he was really serious. Being funny is hard. Like playing a funny role is hard. What did you think about it?
I absolutely loved it. I don't think it's for children though, because
No,
and I've seen that there's an age limit.
I
That
know
like
it's
many.
12.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought it was okay. Well, yeah. So, but even then, I don't know. Anyway, what do I know? Children these days
Well,
are
there were
very
definitely
wise.
children in the cinema that were not 12 years old.
Yeah, that's weird. But I was kind of like you when I found out that there would be a Barbie film. I didn't really know what to expect either. And I was kind of like, do we need this? But I had no idea what kind of masterpiece it was going to be because oh my god, that film I'm obsessed. I want to go watch it again. It was so good. There's so many things to think about, but it's also just funny. It's also just funny and camp, which I think is what we kind of expected from a Barbie movie. But it's just also just there is so much. I cried a handful of
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
It's so beautiful. We like my boyfriend and I walked back home and we had very like existential conversations after that
Aw.
film, which I was not expecting, and it was just great. And everyone was dressed in pink, and it was just the whole thing. I loved it.
Yeah.
Did you go see Oppenheimer as well?
Yes, I did. The next day though. And I mean, okay, people will hate me, but when I was queuing to get some popcorn, I was like, how long is this film? Because I wanted to ration how much food I need, you know. I don't want to get hungry and get up during the movie. And then I saw it's gonna be 3 hours long. And when I read that, I knew this is not for me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm the person who can watch 5 episodes of 50 minutes on Netflix in a binge easily. But that's when I particularly choose what I'm gonna watch, and it's usually reality TV. Oppenheimer was history based, which I'm interested in, but I'm not a history geek, I would say. I do love the whole cast of Oppenheimer. They were amazing actors. But honestly, I got so bored after 2 hours. Like, I just wanted to go home. I've seen it at that point. Like, it's just, and considering they used Christopher Nolan was the director. And yeah, he had some banger films, but I feel like ever since Tenant, I'm just like a bit, I don't know, I'm just not impressed anymore. And I know people loved Oppenheimer. There are people who really, really like that movie, but it's not my vibe. It was a bit too complicated, too many people that haven't been really explained of like who they are. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and I can't follow history-based movies. But yeah, the effects were cool as well. The way they used the way they didn't use sound for certain scenes and stuff. But yeah, not my vibe. Barbie, yes. Oppenheimer doesn't really get a good rating from me.
I haven't been yet. Maybe I'll go watch it. I don't know.
I feel like there was such a long monologue. I'm sorry.
No, no, it's fine. It was interesting.
I'm not apologizing to you. I'm apologizing to people listening. Anyway, but Gladys, I wanted to ask you something as well, because we also got some nice critics on our Instagram reel that we posted about not last week's, but the weeks before, the episode the week before. What do you think about those nice little messages that we got?
I was overjoyed that day. So, for those of you who don't know yet, we got hate comments. We
made
got hate comments. We made it. Mom, I made it. I made it. I'm a star. Honestly, I wasn't expecting hate comments this early on in our journey, but I think even I underestimated how much fat people get people heated. So I don't know.
Yeah, seems it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's so the comments, it was like 2 comments. It's also quite shady accounts, it's these people who barely have any followers, although I think one of them has quite a few, but then they don't really have profile pictures or anything. And they basically they reacted to one of our reels saying something. It was basically the same kind of thing where they were like, oh, why can you can't demand other people to change if you don't want to change, and like why should other people change their behavior because you're fat or something like that, which is funny because they basically just exactly prove my point.
Yeah.
And I do kind of want to say something here because I know that many people kind of deep down secretly or not so secretly probably also kind of feel this way or have thought this at some point in their lives. And when I wrote an article on fat phobia a couple of years ago, one of my family members also reacted in this way, and they said, okay, but if all that stuff was so hurtful and if you hated that so much, why did you not lose weight? And it's just like, if that's your reaction, with all due respect, you have not understood a single thing that I said. Why should anyone have to be thin to be respected and treated like a person, And I think the thing is, and I've kind of been thinking about this with fat phobia, there's the idea that it's not really hate or discrimination in the same way that there's other forms of discrimination, because I think that the idea is, oh, but this is something that you can change. But why should we have to? That's the thing. Like, again, this stems from the idea that thin is the standard, which is harming every single person, every single body. And even if someone actively chooses to be fat, which most people don't, by the way, but even if someone actively chooses to be fat, does that mean it's okay to hate them for it and exclude them and ridicule them? Like, what kind of logic is that? And of course, then there's the, oh, but it's unhealthy arguments. And to that, I say, okay, so then will we start treating people who have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol and drugs the same way? Because I don't see that happening to the same degree. And I mean, come on, at the end of the day, it's just what people's bodies look like. That's literally it. Like, what is it to you? And I personally don't think asking people to treat us like humans is too much to ask, but I guess those 2 people felt differently, which, okay, like of course, they're more than welcome to listen to the full episode.
Yes, please. I hope they're listening right now.
I do think it was great, though. At least this means that people find us on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Which is all we want at this point. Any interaction is an interaction.
Exactly.
Oh, no, but that was very well put from you. I mean, not from them.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh well. Okay. So should we get in this week's episode? Well, actually, maybe introduce the podcast so people actually know who they're listening to. And then get in this week's episode.
Or first announce the summer break.
Oh yes. Oh my god. So today's a wild one. Anyway. What we also wanted to let you all know is that we're going on a summer break, but not for too long. It's just a week where we're both on holiday, and it just we couldn't put the effort in that we would want to put in to the episodes. So we will not be posting an episode on the 9th of August, but we will be back on the 16th of August.
Yeah.
For everyone who will miss us.
So try to hang in there. We know it will be basically impossible,
you'll get through it,
but you can do it.
Oh, exactly. Well, okay. Let's go with the intro then.
Okay. Welcome to Millennial Musings. I'm Gladys.
And I'm Isabella. And we are just two opinionated millennials who sometimes make dumb mistakes. And what we want to do here is to share our experiences and to offer advice that we wish we had received.
Disclaimer, we are not therapists or life coaches, and we have no actual criteria to be giving life advice whatsoever. But we could be your new bestie or your big sister. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready for some millennial musings.
Yes, and we always focus on different themes, and we try to answer 3 to 4 questions within those themes, and each question is one episode. And today we actually start our new corporate theme. And the question today will be, are millennials spoiled for wanting a job they don't hate?
I'm so excited about this topic because I honestly feel like this topic is one of the reasons why we decided to start the podcast, because I think this is one of the things that we sent the most voice notes about to each other.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about this so many times.
Yeah, we really have. We have a lot of opinions about this. Well, not even opinions, just our own thoughts, having been in the work world for a while now. Okay, so are we spoiled for wanting a job we don't hate? I think wanting to be satisfied with your job is quite a valid and reasonable desire for anyone, really. It doesn't really matter which generation you belong to, but I do think that there's like a generational difference when it comes to understanding of what a good and satisfying job looks like to someone, and that is probably because generation face different kind of social stigmas and challenges, which obviously have an impact on someone's values or like job expectations. And it can also relate to someone's upbringing, I think. But what I mean with this is, for us, a good job is more than just earning a lot of money and having a job that you won't have to give up after 12 months, or like where you constantly worry about being fired. And for other people, a good job is just, well, you earn a lot of money here, you should be happy with this, and you can go and sit and not, I don't know, sweat all day for earning that money.
Yes, definitely. I think the reason why I definitely wanted to talk about this, and why, I don't know, like why we've had all these discussions about it over the years and everything, is because one of the things that I always heard as a younger person, and actually still, was people would tell me, and it would mostly be my parents' generation or my grandparents' generation, they would tell me, nobody likes their job. It's a job. It's not meant to be fun. And I always felt like, okay, but that's not what I want. I don't want to spend 40 hours a week or more in an environment that I don't like. And I completely understand that not everyone, that some people just are in that situation because of different reasons. But I always felt like, okay, but that shouldn't be the standard. That shouldn't be the goal. And it shouldn't be weird to not want that, or to want something more than that, and to actually want to work somewhere where you're happy. And exactly what you said as well. I mean, my family, my parents, my grandparents, most of my grandparents and my parents, they only went to school until they were, I think, 16. They had very physical jobs. They've always done manual labor. And to them, it's very, very obvious that contrast, because to them, to my dad, for example, a job where you can sit behind a computer is perfect. It's a perfect job. You have nothing to complain about, which of course I get if you have a job where you have to get up at 4 a.m. and work in a factory for 8 hours a day. But then, so we would sometimes clash, because there would be conversations where he was like, oh, but I read in some article that, you can be a secretary in a hospital or something and it earns very, very well. And why don't you just do that? And then I would be like, because I don't want that. I don't want to be in a hospital. I don't want to have anything. I don't want to work in that sector. That's just not for me. But then to him, it was like, oh, but that's like, it's not a physically demanding job. You can literally just sit there and earn money. So what do you have to complain about? That sounds like a perfect job to me. And I've always found that very interesting, how that can be such a thing. And even with, my grandfather, he did have an office job his entire life. But even there, he stayed there at his company for his entire, literally from when he was a PhD student until the day he retired, he worked for the same company. The company changed names about 5 times, I think. And he just stayed. And there is also that idea that you don't quit unless there is something horribly wrong. But you don't just quit because you feel like, oh, actually, I don't really want this anymore. I don't really like it anymore. I don't get the satisfaction that I want from this job anymore. So that's definitely something that I've always thought about when I got that reaction. I was always like, am I so spoiled for wanting to like my job that I would do 5 days a week?
Or wanting to not dreading to go to work every day. Yeah. No, I mean, a job literally consumes the biggest portion of your life. Like, you spend around, if you have a full-time job, if you're lucky, you only spend 40 hours with your job, because a lot of people work over hours and come up to 60 or more. And then it's the first thing that I'm asking myself is, if you spend so much time with something, why does it have to be something that actually just drains you? Like you said as well, I'm aware that this is quite a privileged question to ask, because not everyone has the chance to just choose. Well, another thing I also think about generations before millennials, and probably also before Gen X, maybe, I don't know. Let's say it for boomers and before, is that they are so focused on their job, or like not focused, but they almost identify themselves with their job, because that's what they do and what they have done, like the same job, probably in the same industry, probably in the same company for years and years and years, that when they reach the age of retirement, it can be really hard to actually let go, which I don't understand, because I am 28, soon 29, and I cannot wait to retire and hopefully have a good pension if I'm very lucky to just enjoy my life. It's just, I think it's because you have started identifying with your job. It's obviously hard to let go because it has become a part of you. And one thing a friend of mine actually told me after she listened to our first podcast episode, so go listen if you haven't had a chance to listen to that one yet. But yeah, in our first episode, Gladys and I are both listing 5 facts about ourselves to introduce ourselves. And what a friend of mine told me was that neither of us, when we were listing those 5 facts, mentioned our job or our role or what we do for a living. And I mean, you, Gladys, and we have talked a lot about this before this podcast even was an idea, especially since we had our bad job experience, in which we get into later. And we both believe that your job is and should not be your identity. And I think the main reason a job shouldn't be your identity is that I honestly can't imagine that is good for your mental health, because to me, identifying yourself through your job is almost like identifying yourself through a partner in your romantic relationship, for example. Because if you would have good friends, they would then tell you that is not smart or healthy if you can only see yourself through your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. And with the job, that job literally could be taken away at any point, and then it probably would break you if that's how you, well, if that was part of your identity. And of course, losing a job is always hard. Like that is a lot of stress that comes with it. But I just feel like it might hit you harder psychologically that way. And another thing is, I also think that if you become your job and you end up living to work and not work to live, it will make you so much more stressed about certain situations at work. Like, I'm not a doctor, but if I think about how it would affect me, I would guess that I would burn out quicker if the job would be such a heavy, big thing in my life, because you're obviously not just scared, like I said before, about losing your income, but about so much more.
Yes, definitely. And a couple of years ago, I heard someone on Instagram talk about what we say when, or what we mean when we ask someone the question, what do you do? And I've actually actively started not asking that question anymore, or rephrasing that question to, what do you like doing? Or what are your favorite things to do? Because from my own experience, the question, what do you do? I think when you ask someone that question, you expect to hear their job, right? Which, first of all, not everyone has a job. So maybe that's not something everybody wants to give an answer to at any moment in time. Maybe sometimes that is a little bit unsteady at the moment for some people or something. So they don't really want to reply to that. But also, when I worked for, I actually feel like, because we will mention, also stay on for the bit that's about to come about this work experience, because you do not want to miss this. But I kind of feel like, of course, we can't say the name because I'm not trying to get sued. So should we just call it the shit show?
Sure, because I'm sure we're not going to get sued for that one. No, let's call it the shit show. I mean,
so when I worked for the shit show, I dreaded this question every time someone asked me, so what do you do? Which happens quite often if you start thinking about it, if you start focusing on it. I hated my job. I didn't want to talk about my job. And every single time, so I would kind of give them like a very vague and very brief answer. But then I also immediately was like, okay, but I also do this and this. And these are actually the things I want to do. And these are my favorite things to do. Because I just wanted to make it very clear that job was that was not who I am.
Yeah.
And that was not actually what I do. Well, it was what I did to earn money, but it wasn't what I liked to do.
Yeah.
And what I actually did spend my time doing voluntarily.
No, I was in the same situation as you. Like, we worked for the same shit show. Oh, that's how we met. But my answer was actually, I started lying. I felt so uncomfortable when people ask me that I wasn't really lying. I was just making what we do sound really interesting. And actually people then were like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And I was just sitting there like, I wish it was cool. Because I just didn't know what else to say. I just was overwhelmed and uncomfortable. So yeah, I
was past that point. I couldn't even make it sound cool anymore. And the people were like, "Oh, that sounds fun." And I was like, "Yeah, not really."
Well, I didn't give that answer for too long. At some point, I was like, "I do this, but I wish they would just fire me." But we get into this later.
Yeah. So she's not joking, by the way.
Oh no, people will learn about this in a bit.
Yeah. I did want to say one thing about the thing you said about that your job should not be your identity. So I do agree with that to some extent, as that, yes, exactly. When you have a job and that's just what you do to make a living and everything, you should not get to, especially in the corporate world.
Yes.
You should not get too attached to it, and it shouldn't be just how you define yourself. Of course, I do think if you're the kind of person, if what you do is literally what you love to do most in this world. For example, one of my friends is a chef and she just lives and breathes cooking, and it's not just what she earns money doing, but it's also the thing she loves to do. Or if you're a writer or someone, and if you're someone who genuinely just, if what you do to make money is also what you would be doing if you didn't have to make money, um, then yeah, of course, it can completely be your passion and it can be a very big part of who you are. But on that, I also think not everyone's job has to be their passion. And I think it's great that now, especially with our generation, younger generations, we want to go for what we want and we're allowed to demand a little bit more from work and a work environment and everything. But I also think that the flip side of this is it kind of created this mentality and this idea that we all have to be hustlers and we all have to be extremely ambitious. And I very often see posts on Instagram that are like, you're resting, but you haven't achieved your goals yet. So what are you doing? Get up and work. And and then I'm
do you mean like Kim Kardashian? What was her quote where she got so much shit for? She said, women just need to get up and work. Basically, to become like her.
Yeah, people don't know what it's like to work it. People don't want to work anymore.
Oh, God, yeah. No.
Exactly. So that's very much the mentality now as well. And I just want to say to that, if you have passions and you want to work towards your goals, then yes, let's be honest, sometimes you need a kick in the butt. I know I do. I know I definitely do, because I can be, my own procrastination is my biggest enemy. But also many people are not, like they don't have these big passions or ambitions that they want to work towards every single day. Many people, actually, society is built on people who are very comfortable with a job that is just nice.
Yeah.
And that gives them a good work-life balance. And that is okay as well. Normalize not having passions.
Yes, because I feel like this is like this. I know those quotes and posts about your passion and make your passion your dream. They have a positive reinforcement. But no, I feel like it can create like this toxic positivity where you feel like, but I'm literally not interested in anything else. But I don't know, reading a book, like that is my passion. I love coming home and reading a passion after I've had a day at the office where I did my job, which is literally just my job. Like this needs to be normalized. I feel like nowadays there has been a little shift where it's, because back in the day it was like, okay, you go and you get a good job, you become a doctor, a lawyer, I don't know, a finance person, someone who earns a lot of money and can be very successful. Whereas now I feel like it does not matter what you want to do, just go and do it and make a lot of money with it. And I'm like, well, but it's just hard, especially if you're a creative person and you want to do something creative. Like those industries are so hard to get into, be it writing, filming, anything.
Definitely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, because but then the other thing is, I do think I am a creative person. I need some kind of creative outlet. I studied film and media because I was, and now still am again, extremely passionate about that. So then after my shit show job, I applied for quite an artsy digital media company and I got the job. And I thought this will be the thing for me because I really just enjoy being creative and editing and all that stuff. But eventually I ended up editing so much and I was constantly asked for new ideas for social media. And I was constantly asked to just be creative and come up with stuff and more and more and more, that I just felt like my creativity had been sucked out by me by a dementor. Like I really started to hate what originally was my passion. I love being creative again now. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be part of this podcast right now. But it really took me some time to recharge those creative batteries. Yeah. And I actually needed to find the job I have now, that I really enjoy going to. I enjoy the people I'm working with, but it's something that has nothing to do with what I studied, really. It has nothing to do with film or media. But I feel like it's a balance between, I have a job, it pays my bills, I enjoy developing within that industry, but my passion, so to say, is outside.
Yeah, no, and yes, exactly. And that's so true what you said. There is this thing of when you tell someone, oh, I love, I don't know, taking photographs, then immediately there's this thing of like, why do you not do it professionally? And you should make a lot of money and
you should have an exhibition.
Yes, and sometimes people just want to do that on the side as a passion project, and sometimes that can just be all there is. About the job thing though, I kind of have, well, I don't want to say problem, but I kind of have the opposite thing now, because I have a job currently, well, and we again work for the same company. I have a job that I really like, but my job is writing, so I write as a job. So a couple of hours a day I write, and I also love writing for myself. But then, and if you follow my blog, then you will have probably noticed that once again, I haven't posted anything in months. And it's also kind of because now I write every single day and I love it. But after having written things for work 8 hours a day, I'm sick and tired of looking at Google Docs. I just want to do something else, which is why the podcast is great, because that's exactly another creative outlet. But I've been thinking these past couple of weeks, like, okay, but I'm barely writing, and what's up with that? Because I love it so much. But exactly, I do have to be quite creative during work in that way, and it's the same. Yeah. It's exactly the same thing. Well, of course, the writing would be more personal if I would do it in my spare time. But yeah, so that's kind of a thing for me now. So I kind of need to find that passion, or I need to kind of rekindle that fire again. Speaking of work experiences, should we dive into our shared horror story?
Oh, let's get into it.
Okay. Do you want to start?
I don't know. Did we hype it up too much and people are now expecting something really horrible?
Honestly, with the things on mine, I do not think people will be disappointed. I don't think people will think, oh, they made it sound worse than it is when I tell you the things that are on my
Yeah, I think that's true. Let's just get into it. I'm just going to start because I think I have a lot to say about the things you're going to say after this. I'm just going to intro it. So both of our job, the first ever job we had in the UK, was in the same company. And I was being naive, and you probably too, because I thought that corporate jobs in companies like that, especially as well, are quite fancy. At least that's what you see in like these Hollywood movies when people rush around in New York to get to their offices. And yeah, I mean, the whole start of the shit show was quite
It was
quite good.
Fancy.
That was quite fancy. Like, we both got our jobs, and then we had the first ever day. We had to travel. We had to travel to another country. Can we say where? Doesn't really matter, does it? Yeah, we traveled to Luxembourg. I've never been. I think you've never been. And it was quite the experience. We were being picked up at the airport, and we had a nice hotel, and it almost felt like a holiday, even though we were meeting people from the company and our manager, who we thought is going to be amazing and who will listen to us. But yeah, it turned dark pretty quickly after we got back.
So I'm honestly, I have tears already. So we started this job in September 2019. I knew in November of 2019 that I had to get out of there. and I remember we were on the sidewalk because we went for a little break. I know exactly where we were, on the corner of the street. And I remember telling you, Isabella, this is not for me. This is absolutely not for me. I had just had a one-on-one meeting not with our manager, who, by the way, we have to give a name. And I decided on Julie. Our manager was...
we will call our manager
Our Julie. Manager was Julie. Yeah. So it wasn't Julie, it was someone else. Kind of Julie's predecessor, I think, who Julie would be replacing. Me and him had a one-on-one. And many things were said in that one-on-one. But one of the things was, a couple weeks prior, I was in the kitchen and I ran into an HR person, head of HR. And because I had read about social initiatives and everything that the company does, I was very excited. I was very excited to organize and maybe become part of a social team. So I asked her if I could talk to her for a moment about this. She said no, she didn't have time, but if she could reach out to me later, if that would be okay. So I said, yes, absolutely fine. It's not urgent. It's okay. Weeks later, this man brought that up in my one-on-one, and he literally said that this had been a point of discussion in meetings with other managers. And so I was asked why I had requested a meeting with HR, which still to this day, I think is the most unprofessional and unacceptable thing. Because let's say there was something very serious. This woman had literally just turned around and told the entire department. What? So, yeah, I knew in November 2019 that I had to leave. I ended up staying for 2 years because I told myself, and I also got told by other people, that that's just how it is. That's just how that's just how the corporate world is.
Yeah. Well, I think it only took me 3 weeks to tell you that certain people from this office are just a bit witchy, but not in the cool way, not in the cool LA kind of witchy way. And yeah, it literally didn't take me long to realize this is not going to be it. And I was so relieved when it turned out you are feeling the same. You're feeling the same way. And yeah, like you said, I thought this is me out of uni, now having to do a corporate job that I haven't done before. And I thought, well, I guess it's just something I have to get used to. But yeah, I think it pretty quickly also started, if I remember it correctly. Like, I think it only took like 3 or 4 months for us to start worrying about losing our job, because I feel like I had anxiety of, oh my God, I'm gonna lose this job because this and this and this is happening.
Almost
The anxiety.
immediately. That's not normal, guys. It's not normal if after like
because there was
3 months.
There were so many changes happening that we were like, oh shit, I think we are actually just like this in-between phase, and they hired us for this reason, and then they're gonna kick us out as well. And I mean, yes, at this point I did already know this is something I don't want to do, but also I was 3 months into a job and I wanted it to not look too bad on my CV, so I was worried about that, and I was worried about losing the money, because the one thing about this job that was good was the salary. And yeah, so at the beginning, after I was like, oh my God, I do not want to do this, it added some anxiety to it too. Well, worrying about that I'm going to lose the job. The anxiety soon, though, became hope.
Also, that initial anxiety wasn't helped by the fact that, first of all, we did replace the previous team who all got fired.
Yeah.
So that team was originally in Luxembourg, and they just got told, oh yeah, we're opening the office in the UK. It wasn't London, it was somewhere else. And so basically all of them just lost their job. And then also we had our teams in the UK, and then we also had a team overseas. I think I think we can say this, right? You were working for the German market, I was working for the Dutch market, and we all had people from India in our teams as well. Those people also one morning went into work and got told that they were closing.
Oh yeah, I think that was the thing that made us so worried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't weird that we felt that way.
No, it really wasn't. It was a confusing time, because on the one hand you were like, I really don't like this job, and then on the other hand it's like, but I also really can't afford to get fired. I mean, I could have afforded to get fired because I was living with my parents at the beginning.
Yeah,
but still, you don't want this in your CV. Like,
you don't want to be somewhere for a couple of months and get laid
and
off,
then immediately use your job. Yeah, of course. But yeah, I think in general, what made the job so bad for me was mainly pure horrendous management that ruined it. Like, our manager, truly, I don't think that to this day she ever knew what was going on, ever. Like, I remember this one time she sent out an email to, I think in the email she asked me to tell people something, to tell the wider team something, and I had no idea what she means. And then I asked her to clarify, and she couldn't clarify, and she got angry, and she got snappy. And then I asked Bob, and together we tried to figure out what she actually means, because Bob also didn't know what she was talking about. And then it was a whole back and forth, and in the end it was just one simple thing that I had to send out in an email to the team, but she had no idea what was going on. And like, I don't even know if this story makes sense, but like, that's how it was to communicate with her. She kept giving me tasks, but she had no idea. She heard some bits that have been told to her that needs to be done, and then she gave those bits to me, but she actually had no idea what it meant. I don't know.
Julie never had any idea. And also, we did hear eventually that Bob actually just completely took over her role officially. But also, it was for a very long time, it was unofficially, because he would eventually start joining our meetings. And every time someone asked a question, even if someone specifically asked Julie a question, Bob would just kind of start answering, because I feel like everyone knew that she had no idea. Also, Julie is the one manager I have had so far in my life who treated me, well, us, I should say, differently than the men in our team.
Oh my God, can I tell? The first time I noticed that was, so I was in the German market, and I had one person who was with me in the German market who was a special kind of person. And that guy just did not talk to me. Like, we were sitting next to each other in the office, okay? Side by side. There was no wall between us. And I asked him something, and he just would not react to what I was saying. But if I would message him on Teams, he would reply on Teams. So you can guess it was really hard to get anything done, or we were doing tasks double because I was doing them and he was doing them, and it was just like there was no clarity, nothing. So in my one-on-one with my manager Julie, I mentioned this, and then she was like, "Well, he's a man. What should we do?" I mean, excuse me? Like, I didn't even react to that. I literally just left and told Gladys, basically.
That sets the tone, I think, for just, that completely encapsulates how we were managed in general. Because there was also, after a while, actually no, very early on, because after 6 months COVID happened, but during those 6 months there was also the issue of working from home,
before COVID.
Yes, before COVID. So we got told, obviously, that team in Lux got got laid off because the office was moving, so it wouldn't make sense for us to then start working from home, because then it was kind of a thing of like, well, we did hear that the people in Luxembourg were a little bit bitter when people would work from home, because then they were kind of like, okay, so we could have just kept our jobs and also worked from home. So, okay, makes sense. If it wasn't for the fact that the men literally never came to the office, they worked from home all the time. There was always something, whether it was too much traffic, strikes, an eye infection, an ear infection, I don't care what it was. There was always a reason why these men were working from home. I remember me and my colleague on the Dutch team, we asked one time if we could work together, or if we could work from home on the 2nd of January, because we had family over. We got told no. We got told,
I mean,
no.
It was literally during the Christmas holidays as well.
Yeah, we got told, no, that is not an option. I eventually did a very petty thing, and I started a spreadsheet where I kind of color-coded every person, and then I started marking every time the men would work from home versus when we worked from home. And after a while, and then eventually I did present this to the managers, and some of them were working from home 50% of the time. And I showed them this. Of course, I got I'll speak to Julie about it. Of course, nothing ever happened.
Yeah. Nothing happened except that we went into the office being told you can't work from home, and then COVID happened, and no one ever had stepped a foot back into that office building.
Oh yes, because one time when we had this discussion, they said this is not a job that you can do from home, even though we had people on our team who had remote contracts from the beginning, so they were doing that job from home. But that's a different story. But no, we had to come in 5 days a week. And then COVID happened, and then they sold the building because, actually, it could be done from home.
They don't need an office.
No.
The other thing was, though, another thing about the men, I remember everyone being quite ill. Well, the men being quite ill, sitting around me. One of them hadn't come into the office for a while because he was ill. And the other one just came back to work because he wasn't feeling well for a few days and then obviously stayed at home, worked from home, but then came back because he was feeling a bit better. And that's when I started to feel ill. And I had the same journey from the office to the train station as my manager. So we were walking both together. And I was like, I'm really not feeling well. Like, I have a sore throat, my head hurts. I think I got like I just infected myself with whatever they had. And then she looked me dead in the eye and said, "No, you can come to work. This is just a man flu." Like, really? Is it though? Because I'm not feeling well.
That woman, I mean, honestly, I honestly don't want to be mean about these people, but some of them were not okay.
No,
There was just something wrong
no,
with
they
them.
really weren't.
There was,
Yeah.
and they should definitely have not been in management positions. They really shouldn't.
No.
Um, Also, one thing I remember was, well, basically everything was a shit show in that company. And also, we didn't really say this, but it's a big company. It is big. It's American. It is quite known. Like you would,
Yes, people know it.
like you said, you would really expect something else. Um, and then also, so everything would be, yeah, would be a shit show. Everything would be chaos all the time. But we were also expected to lie between teams. I know that they sometimes, when there was an issue, that Julie would say something like, "Oh no, we have waterproof processes in place, and we know exactly how to handle this." When there were no processes in place, or then even
Yeah.
teams who we would work with like on a day-to-day basis. And then there was one time I remember when there was an issue again, and I in the email thread mentioned that there was a gap somewhere and that we just needed to improve on something. And then I got a private reply from Julie that was like, "Please don't share these things outside of the team." Everything was just so secretive, and there was
We
absolutely no,
had to hide everything that wasn't properly sorted out by our manager, basically from everyone
even
else.
though it was very obvious. Yeah, because then
Yeah.
also that one-on-one that upset me so much was basically all things that she had said were okay. And then in that one-on-one, it was just a list of things where it was like, "Oh, so Julie told me this and this and this." For example, also, oh, that's another thing as well. Some of these men would just come in around, I don't know, 10 or something, when most of us,
Oh
well,
yeah,
you
and leave at
and
4:20.
leave at 4:20. One day I had to leave early to go to the garage, and that was the one day that this other person, the person who used to be the manager, he was there, like he was visiting us, and I had to leave early to go to the garage. And so I got told off in that one-on-one with him because he was like, "Yeah, I saw you leave early. What was that
Yeah,
about?"
and also I have to say you were the person that usually left around like after 6, whereas myself, because I couldn't be asked, I left when my manager left, who also left. We literally left at 4:20 or 4:25 to catch the correct train. So it was just that day no one left early, and then that was the day you actually had something to do, and you just got all the shit for it, as if no one else left that early
Well, also,
on
I
other
basically
days.
had to, because to give a bit of
Yeah.
context, so the Dutch team, which was me and my colleague until my colleague left because she just couldn't take it anymore, and it was just me. And then there was two people in the French team. The two of us shared a client because we had a Belgian client, and Belgium's bilingual, so the French team and me shared a client, and it was our biggest client that we had in that department. Whereas the German team, the Spanish team, just the other teams, I mean, I can say it was quite slow business for you
I
guys.
don't think I don't think we had a client at this point.
No, exactly. So
I mean, we did, but they needed nothing. Anyway, yeah.
yeah, so for our clients, there were some technical processes in place. Basically, we would have to send them the latest versions of the data every day for on like three specific times, and the last one was at 5. It could be a little bit earlier, but usually it was later. So usually there was an issue. If there was a technical issue, it could sometimes be 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. on some occasions 9 p.m.
Oh
We
yeah.
were always expected to be standby. This was never agreed from the beginning. This was just something, after a while, there was just more and more issues. And we were just expected to stay until the work was done. So yeah, I ended up coming in later eventually as well, because I was like, if I have to stay here until 7 p.m., why should I come in at 7:30? And then when COVID happened, it got a lot worse. And I guess many people can relate to this, but the line between work and your personal time just becomes very blurred, and you really need to protect that. But for us, it became a thing of like, oh, they honestly treated us as like, oh yeah, but you're home already, so you can just keep your laptop open and keep an eye on it. And then they would tell us things like, oh, but of course you don't have to stay and sit behind your laptop the entire evening. You're allowed to eat or something. And they actually made it sound like they were doing us a favor by telling us, oh, you have to wait until 10 p.m. to do this, but you can eat in the meantime.
It was wild, but then also that was your side. Mine was I don't know. I At the beginning it was fine. There was a lot to learn. We had the training and everything, and I ended up giving training at some point to people on a regular basis, like the freelancers and stuff, but I had no tasks. And when I say I had no tasks, I mean I had no tasks. Maybe, well, I had one task, I think, in the morning that took me like 30 minutes, and then I had absolutely nothing to do. And I hate doing nothing. I hate being unproductive. I cannot not, I just can't deal with it. And yeah, I mean, I told my manager, I have nothing to do. Please give me any task. Why do I have nothing to do? What are the people doing? Like, can you please tell me what I can do? I was really annoying. I was constantly asking for helping out with anything that comes up. Like, I was begging for work, but I did not get anything. No, like, people did not react. At some point, I even got somehow promoted into a weird role, into a weird position that no one explained to me what it was. I didn't really get more money. I was just hoping I get more tasks, but I didn't get any more tasks. And I ended up sitting in our telephone booth with my laptop in the office, because that was pre-COVID, and watch Netflix because I had absolutely nothing to do, even though I kept begging for it. And I it was horrible. Like, it was literally torture.
Yeah, yeah. I think, well, you and I, yes, we definitely did have a different experience. Well, we felt the same way, I think, overall about the
Yeah.
company, but you did have nothing to do. Whereas I,
Which also always made me wonder, what is my team colleague doing? Because I know what we have to do and there's nothing to do. So what was he doing all the time? I mean, he did come up with the weirdest questions all the time. So I don't think he was actually working. He was just looking around our programs. I don't know.
yeah, whereas then for me, I used to be a team with 3 people. Eventually, after a couple of months, less than a year, I was one person and I was doing that work on my own. Which
I mean, I was considering learning Dutch so I can help you. So I have something to do.
also turns out you don't even need to speak that language to be on that team,
Oh no.
because if one of us was on holiday, and because there was only one person as well for the Spanish team, for example, if he was away for 2 weeks, then, you would cover for that market. You don't speak Spanish. That was never an issue.
Yeah.
And then also, this also led to the absolute highlight of my time there, the rest and recharge days issue. So we got told that the days between Christmas Day and New Year's Day, it was 3 days, I'll never forget, 3 days that year, 3 working days, I mean, those
Yeah.
days would be rest and recharge days, which meant, in theory, that everybody was off. So it was just 3 holidays that you got. I say in theory because then we got an email that said, well, everyone will essentially be off. Just for everyone, just FYI, if people say something like that, if people say, oh, it will essentially this, or normally it should be this. That means it's not. That means it's not that. So they said you'll essentially be off, but the busy markets would have to be standby in case something comes up. We knew at this point that that meant 3 people of our team, which was me and the 2 French people. The other people we knew would not have any work. We knew that we basically would have to work all day because something would come up. Something always came up. So we knew, okay, for us with our clients, something will come up. So we have to be standby. That, in my opinion, is not being off. Being off means I don't have to work. I can go wherever and not take my laptop with me because I don't have to be at work. Being essentially off and having to be standby, that's not being off. Then they also said, oh, but you have to be standby, but if you're traveling, then you can be off, which kind of made me think, okay, so if I lie and I say that I'm just taking a flight or something, then I don't have to work. What? It was all things like this. There was always double standards. It was never clear. They would always communicate.
Yeah, can I please also say, because this was still during the time where we're being told off for working from home. Yeah. One of the people from one of the teams has been working from Spain at this point already for like 10 days. Before Christmas and then after.
This boy would literally go to Spain for 2 weeks and just work from. But he was clearly Julie's favorite, and I mean, I liked him. He was my favorite as well, but he was clearly Julie's favorite as well. So I honestly don't think I have ever been more upset at work in my entire life. When this whole discussion started. And also, of course, it was a thing of like everyone complaining that it wasn't fair, nobody really saying anything. So I took that role upon myself and I reacted to Bob's email and I said, okay, I'm sorry, but we all know who will be working and why do other people on the team just get 3 days off when we will essentially be off, but we will actually be working 3 days. He got back to me and he said, if you don't like it, I suggest you take it up with HR. To which I said, oh, don't you worry. I've already done that. So I got in touch with HR and I explained the situation. There was actually a normal quite a normal HR person as well. So there was the woman who told everyone that I requested a meeting with her. There was also quite a normal person who got back to me and said, yeah, that is absolutely not what this is supposed to be. So she was like, I'm immediately reaching out to Julie and Bob. They got reprimanded and then we got an email that said, oh, so apparently there's been miscommunication. Of course, we never meant that people would have to work during this time. And of course, you're all off and this and that. So they didn't even have the balls to actually admit that was 100% what they meant and what they told us to do. So eventually there was 3 days, there were 3 people who would have had to be standby. We ended up each working 1 day and then taking that day off another time. Bob was absolutely furious with me. He was furious. And I was just like, honestly, that's literally all. And it was all things like that. It was all things like, why not just do that from the beginning? Why not just be like, okay, there will be 3 people who have this client who will definitely need something.
Yeah, communication was not a thing in this company, like absolutely not at all.
Which reminds me that when I had my interview with this company, one of the things they asked me, which let me tell you this right now. If this is a question people ask you during a job interview, don't walk away, run away. They asked me, how do you deal with extremely bad communication in a company? They asked me this. I've forgotten. They literally asked me this.
Yeah, I had to say in my interview, not because they asked me, but because one of my answers, and I say that in every company, not with any interview that I do now more than ever after this experience. But like I had in my interview, one of my interview answers was like when they ask what do you look for in a job, I said I want to work in a job where there's clear and honest communication, and they interrupted me literally saying, "What do you do if it's not clear and honest?" It's like not clear and honest. Sorry, they just ask, "What do you do if it's not clear?" And yeah, I don't know what I replied.
It wasn't honest either.
It wasn't honest. No, absolutely not honest.
Because then, there was also the actual day-to-day tasks, the job, which we got hired as content writers. We never really did that. We did that a little bit.
Content producers, yeah.
Oh, yeah, content producers. In the beginning, we kind of did that. Then one day, they drastically changed our roles. And they became super technical. So after a while, we were just running and analyzing reports all day, every day, which...
Yeah, we kind of became data people instead.
We did. And then, they started...
Well, those who had something to do.
Yes, and then they started hiring freelancers to do the actual writing, which, okay, but that was... That the job we got was not what any of us applied for. So it was very misleading as well.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
And so
don't even know what to say.
But then I honestly, yes, like you said, because it was my first job after, I had worked before, but it was always, as a student or an internship or something. Well, actually, I did work in Berlin, and it was a corporate environment as well, and it was nothing like this. But I kind of, you just start thinking, maybe that's just what it's like. And then one of the people, I think also Bob at some point told me, well, you'll find if you go somewhere else that it's the same, that the same things happen, which it's just not true. It's absolutely not true. But I, after a while, started thinking, I'm probably the problem. I'm probably just not made for the corporate world. If this is what the corporate world is, I'm not made for it.
When I quit during my conversation while I was quitting, Bob also said something like, "Oh, I always wanted to, I don't know, go after his creative passion, but he kind of got stuck there." And I was just like, let me out of here now.
Oh my God. Another thing I'd completely forgot. Well, I do think about it regularly, but I don't even have it in my notes. When I left, when I told the team that I was leaving, one of these people, one of them, so they asked me, "Oh, what do you want to do?" And
oh my God, I remember.
Yeah.
What you gonna say?
Yes, yeah. One of these people, they asked me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Okay, I want to kind of be a bit more creative. I wanted to look for some more creative opportunities." And this guy said, "Yeah, that's what they all say." To which I said, "What's that supposed to mean?" And he said, "Yeah, that's what I said as well. And then I ended up back here. And the same thing will happen to you." That's literally what
no.
That is literally what this person said to me when I told them that I was not something like, "Oh, I wish you all the best. Oh, good luck." No. Literally, "You'll be back here."
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, because after a while, I left because then eventually there came a point where, honestly, certain names would pop up on Slack or on Microsoft Teams, and I would literally just feel my chest get tight.
Because the thing is, sorry, just for everyone listening, the thing is, truly was a problem, but there were many other people that were just really weird, fucking weird characters to be around. Like, the way people, it was such a toxic work environment. People would just snap at you. They send you actually rude emails. Like, you wouldn't talk to your friends like that if you actually like them. Like, it was ridiculous. It was like high school girls fighting. Like, it was not normal communication that was going on.
No, exactly. Yeah, and it's so good that you say that exactly. It was the passive aggressiveness. I would honestly go for lunch for an hour.
It wasn't even passive aggressive. It kind of was aggressive.
That's actually true. It actually was aggressive.
And that was in England, okay? Those were, some of them were British people.
Yeah, not the one I'm thinking of. She was German.
Oh yeah, she was
Not
German.
that that means
I
anything, guys,
remember.
but
No.
no, but like I would be gone for an hour to I would take a lunch break. I would come back to a threads of like 10 emails with people just shouting, exactly, being aggressive, being like, why are you not here? How are we fixing this? What do you suggest we do now? Or then that woman would be like, hey, I have a short question, blah blah blah. And then if some one of us I remember one of us started explaining something, and then she would say something like, okay, never mind. I guess it wasn't so short then. And it would just constantly be remarks like this all day, every day. And actually, I started doing it as well. And I'm not that person, but I started doing it because you just get so used to it. And you get to a point where you're like, okay, I won't let these people speak to me that way.
Oh my God, Gladys, do you remember?
What?
Oh, the worst, one of the worst moments of my life. Okay, so Gladys was sharing a screen. That was during COVID already, and we were working from home. And I got some weird task by Bob about something that has nothing to do with what should have been. I don't know. No, it had nothing to do with me because it was in Finnish, and I do not speak Finnish. Okay, I do not know Finnish. I do not read Finnish. I am not Finnish. And at that point, I was just pissed. Yes, I was bored because I had nothing to do. It wasn't that bad though, because I was at home because it was during COVID, so I was just doing whatever. At this point, I think I was aggressively applying for other jobs most of the day. But yeah, so he asked me to do that task or several tasks, and I was pissed because we were both pissed at that point. And I sent Gladys some messages about, oh my God, he just asked me to do this and this. And then I said something about the way I said something like, no, thank you, sir. I'm not going to do this. Thank God I didn't use any insults or bad words. But only a few seconds after I sent all these messages to Gladys, Bob actually messaged me privately saying, by the way, Gladys is sharing her screen. I have never felt the blood drop out of my head this quickly. I literally just aggressively shut my laptop, ran to my boyfriend, and put my head under his t-shirt. That was I remember this so exactly because I felt so horrendous. But then on the other hand, it was nothing horrible. I was basically just complaining that I am not meant to do this task, and now they're pushing. Oh, it was because the person who was responsible for these tasks left recently, and they said they're not going to hire anyone else. So now they were dropping some language on me that I do not speak or have any knowledge about. Oh, I'm getting hot and feeling uncomfortable just by thinking of that situation.
Oh my God, yeah, I do remember. That was brilliant. And then there was me also unexpectedly having to share my screen and having not one, not two, but about 20 LinkedIn tabs open. And I had to share my screen, and these tabs were just everyone saw them. And it was very obvious that I too was aggressively looking for a job. But what you said about that Finnish thing, exactly, that's the thing as well. So people would leave because even though we were eventually doing data stuff most of the time, we were at the end of the day still producing content and delivering content to the clients in these languages. And some teams would literally not have there would not be one person who spoke that language anymore, and we still had to do it. And then they would tell the other person who was covering for them that they just had to use Google Translate or something.
Oh yes.
Which
yeah, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
So like I said, exactly, because of all the aggressive vibe. It was just in the air.
It was
all
just
the time.
toxic. The toxic vibe was
so
too
toxic.
much.
And so yes, after a while, like I said, I would see certain names in my inbox, or I would see them pop up in like Slack messages, and my chest would just get tight. I would just feel that pressure on my chest immediately. I also, after a while, started having panic attacks. Sometimes it happened it happened a handful of times, I think, in my life. But there was one time where it woke me up in the middle of the night. And I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack. I really hope you haven't, because it honestly feels like you're dying. I think it feels like what a heart attack probably feels like. You're just 100% convinced that you're dying. And then for me, eventually as well, it was impacting my work. You had also left at this point. I was still there. Because I had a very high rent, like I discussed in a previous episode. And I also, yes, the salary was good. And I had kind of told myself, and other people also told me, that I wouldn't get the salary anywhere else. And then also sometimes, like you said, I would be aggressively applying for there would be some moments where I'd be like, okay, I need to get out of here right now as soon as possible. And then for a while, I would do nothing but apply in my spare time. But because the job was so incredibly draining, I didn't even have the energy at the end of the day to apply for jobs anymore. So then after a while, that would just slow down again, or then there would be a couple of days that were kind of okay. And then I thought, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I can stay here for a little bit longer because the money is nice.
And that's when I told you, because we were obviously still in contact, even though I wasn't working there anymore. But you always said, but there are days, well, not always, but sometimes said, there are days where it's not that bad. And I told you, it literally sounds like you're trapped in a toxic relationship. It's exactly what you do. You're like, oh, but he's been really nice today, even though the past 6 months he was just yelling at you. Like, it is literally the same. When I left that company, I felt like I've left a toxic partner and I can finally breathe again.
You had a bottle of champagne on your last day.
Oh my God. I had no. It was 10 a.m. in the morning. I quit my job on that Zoom call and I opened a bottle of Prosecco with my boyfriend, because I think he was relieved I can finally shut up about that company.
And here we are again.
Well, yeah. Well, the two of us, but we don't hate our current company.
No. We are talking about it again, but it's a trip down horror memory lane.
Yeah, but I do have to say, just again to prove how much I wanted to get out of this job, because some of these situations might just sound like really meh, why are they so whiny about it to some people? It was altogether such a horrible soup of toxicity that I left this job in the end for a job that literally paid me half the amount of money that I earned at this job. And I mean, I was lucky because at the beginning I was living with my parents, so I had the chance to save a lot of money before I moved in with my boyfriend and had to start paying rent. But honestly, like, that was some big cut of earnings that I made there. And I do still think it was worth it because, yeah, the other job was fine. It was good. The company wasn't as bad. Every company has bad things. So, well, a lot of companies have bad stuff going on, but it was a better experience than the other one, definitely.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I left without a plan B, which also kind of shows how desperate I was to get out of there eventually. Well, also I should say, first I requested working part-time. So at some point I requested if I could work 4 days instead of 5 days, because at the time, like I said, I had kind of started telling myself, I don't belong in the corporate world. I can't work in a corporate environment if this is what it is. I need to get out of there. So there was a time where I wanted to work as a freelancer. I also did some freelance work and everything. Then I kind of realized that's not what I want to be doing full time, at least not now at this stage in my life. But there was a time where, well, back then especially, I was like, okay, I just need to get my freelance career off the ground. So I asked for 4 days. They refused. They denied my request because they said that the team just didn't have the capacity anymore. Well, obviously we were about a fourth of the size that we used to be. Didn't have the capacity anymore to take my work that one day. So basically they couldn't miss me one day. Fun fact, I left and they never replaced me. So how is that logical? So they couldn't miss me one day. I left 5 days. I left completely, entirely.
To this day as well.
To this day, 1.5 years later. No, almost 2 years later, they have not replaced me. so even though the biggest clients, well, I don't even know if they're still there. If they have any sense, they left a while ago, but I don't know if that client is still there. It's a very big company as well that was his client. Um, Even though that company is, well, also, like I said, French and Dutch speaking, and the content they need is also in French and in Dutch, there is currently not one person there who speaks Dutch. So that's interesting as well. Like I said, there was just a point where it impacted my work. I wasn't doing a good job anymore because I could not, I just didn't care anymore. I could not be bothered anymore. I had zero energy left. And so then I went on holiday to the Lake District, which I remember. And in that moment on holiday, I just realized the thought of having to go back to work literally kills me. There is nothing I want to do less than go back to work, which again, and yeah, I get that some people that you just sometimes are in situations and that's just the way it is. And no, not everyone can just leave these situations, but that's not normal. It is not normal to every Sunday think, okay, I honestly wish I got hit by a bus so I wouldn't have to work. That is not normal, guys. So I knew I had to go. Luckily, I was in a situation where I knew I could do that. I could get by for a couple of months. I could also rely on people to help me if that was necessary. I was very, very nervous to tell my grandfather because he is that person. Like I said, he was with the same company for 40 years almost, I think, or more even. So I was very scared because he would also be a little bit like every time I did bring it up, he was like, yeah, but just stay for a bit longer and the money and everything. So I remember I was on holiday. I called my grandparents and I said, when I get back, I'm quitting. I cannot do this anymore. And he could not have reacted better, more understanding. He immediately was just like, yeah, I know. This has been a thing for a while. You tried it. If you say you can't do it anymore, you can't do it anymore. And I couldn't do it anymore. My colleague left and then didn't work for a year because she was just so burned out. And that's the thing as well. You don't want to get to that place. You really don't want to get to a place where you cannot. And that's where I felt I was headed, honestly. And that really scared me. And then I also, because of course, yes, the money I lived by myself. I had a flat. This was my almost £1,700 flat I had to pay for. So of course I was super nervous. Well, actually, no, I lived here already, I think. Yeah, I lived here already. But this was a very, very stressful thing. And I went back and forth and back and forth. And then there was one friend who told me, okay, you sent me a 10-minute voice note now where you mentioned 50 times that you can't do it anymore. Quit, just quit. And then I think the thing that really did it for me was eventually I asked myself, how big are the odds that I will, even if I don't get a new job immediately. And again, I know that I'm privileged, that I'm in a situation where I knew that I would never be in too much financial trouble. But I asked myself, even if I don't get a job for a very long time, even if I struggle with money, even if I really, really struggle because I can't find anything, will I regret leaving shit show? The shit show. And I just knew, no, there is not one scenario, there is not one single thing that could happen in this life that would make me regret leaving that company. So I did it. And yeah, the relief.
It was the best decision we've both ever made.
Oh my God. The relief I felt. Yeah. Yes. Also, you know what? I just realized this is something very different. But for some reason, I didn't have an exit interview, first of all. Everyone else, I feel like, had it. Did you have an exit interview?
Yes, I had an exit interview and I was asked, would you recommend that working here to a friend? And I said straight to her face, no, unless they really need a lot of money.
Yes.
Really urgently.
Okay, so I did not have an exit interview. They honestly didn't care anymore. And also, I think for most of the people who left, they arranged a pickup for their laptop and everything. I had to pay to send my stuff back, and I have not been paid to this day. I had to pay. I first of all had to ask them and chase them and be like, okay, where do I send this laptop? And then someone gave me their personal address, and I was like, okay, I'll just send it there. I paid for that. Never
Yeah,
sent
I
it
didn't
money.
have to pay.
Yeah,
I
no,
got the pickup
I ha-
curio service.
I had to pay. Also the but I did well. They did give me something like a survey or something. Oh my god, the email I or the essay I wrote in that survey. I don't even know if people read it ever, but
Probably not.
probably not. It probably just went to waste. Well, I do have it saved somewhere, so
Well, it literally has been a shit show. And we are both very happy we're not in that situation anymore. And I just have, well, I guess you could call it some takeaways. But I think one thing that people in any job, in the corporate world, anywhere should know is that you most likely don't have to do a job that kills you mentally. Like that is a way out there. It might be a bit harder sometimes, and applying for a job is a full-time job. So it takes a lot of energy to do both. But once you get out there, it's worth it. And I just think when looking for a new job, your interview time that you have with the company is also the time where you can interview them. Look for red flags. If someone tells you how do you handle bad communication, that is a red flag. Ask them questions that are important to you. Ask them how they think their employees feel about their roles or whatever. Ask any kind of question where you can find out what the vibe is there. And like we said, I am not working my passion. Like, I can be honest about this. I am working a job that I don't hate doing. I do enjoy doing. And I do really like the company. You can find a company with a great culture and great people, and that actually feels like cares a bit for you as much as a company can care for you, I guess. And that will make such a difference. Like, not dreading going to work on a Sunday evening is so nice. Not dreading coming back from your holiday makes a holiday a lot better. So if there is a possibility, try and grab something different if you're currently stuck in a job that is just horrendous.
yes. Yeah, I also want to say to that exactly. Trust your gut during the interview process as well. If you are doing a job and you feel like, okay, this is not it, don't be like me. Don't stay too long until you get to a place where you're just really, really drained. Just start looking, even if you feel like, okay, but I can't leave. I need this job. I need this money. At least start looking, make a deal with yourself that you will apply for 2 jobs a week or whatever it is, whatever you can find the energy for. But also, yes, do trust your gut, because so I was without a job for, I think, 3 months in the end. And there was one interview for a company, and I actually went to the very last stage, or I got to the very last stage. And it was a very nice company that would have looked very nice on my CV. It was a very nice job as well. It was the worst interview I've ever had. It was with this one woman. She was Flemish, and she made me want to cry. She was mean. I don't have any other words for it. She was mean. There was one thing where there was something that she said I didn't mention on my LinkedIn, even though I checked immediately afterwards. It was on my LinkedIn. She just, I don't know, missed it or looked at the wrong version or whatever. But I remember she said something like, well, from someone who would potentially be in charge of our content, I think you would at least expect that they would do this and this. Like, everything she would say to me would be phrased like that. She also said, oh my God, she said, it's a bit insulting, but she also said, well, at least you're Flemish and not Dutch, so you probably do know basic grammar, because most Dutch people don't. And I was like, okay, if this is the vibe I get from this woman after 10 minutes, the thought of having to work with her every day, absolutely not. I didn't leave my old company. I didn't leave the shit show to then enter a new shit show. And there were people who said, oh, but it's such a nice company and the pay's good and everything. Just give it a go, give it a chance. then at least you have something. And I just knew that I could. I was like, I'm sorry, no, I don't want to
No. Yeah.
already be dreading the first day of work before I even start a new job. I don't want that. So I decided to not go to the next stage anymore, to not do. There was a final assessment thing or something. I decided to not do it. And yeah, like I said, I completely understand that sometimes you're in a situation where you can't just leave. You know, the things that you see in movies where it's like, I quit, and then they throw their apron on the floor. Not everyone can just do that. But it doesn't hurt to at least look. There are so many people I know who complain about their job every single
Yeah.
day, but they never, ever, ever even try to look for something else. And you honestly, you don't want to realize in 10 years that you are still in the same job that you hate and that you wasted all that time.
Yeah, exactly. And also, if you would have taken that other job that you said the interview was bad, we both wouldn't be at the company we are at now, because the only reason I really have wanted to be in this company we're both in now is because of your great feedback that you've given. And I know what you have been through because we've been through the same shit show. So I knew I could trust your feedback. And I'm glad I did, because yeah, it is lovely. It is lovely here.
Yeah, but I was also a little bit traumatized. So I did what you said as well. Exactly. Treat that interview like, yes, they need to find out if they want you
Yes.
to work for them. You also need to find out if they're a company that you, or if they're an employer, whoever it is, that you want to work for. And I asked a question during my interview with my current employer. I asked them, okay, it was three women in that interview. And I said, okay, I want each one of you to give me an example of a time where you went against something that the company said, or when you didn't agree with something and you shared your opinion on something, and maybe they didn't agree with you, maybe you didn't end up getting your way, but you at least felt like they respected you and they listened to you. And all three of them, first of all, they were very impressed that I asked that question because it is quite a bold thing. And I get that you can sometimes, of course, when you do an interview, you're nervous, so maybe you don't want to ask that. But also, every single one of them had a great example. So that just told me, okay, I want to work there.
Yeah. And now working there, you know that they do care about your feedback. Our company really, their surveys are important to them, where we can give our feedback, and speaking up is one of the values of our company. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
I mean, we would usually do recommendations. I don't know about you. I don't really have a recommendation. The only thing I want to say is, when working at the shit show, after working there for a while, I gave the series The Office another chance, because I tried to watch it before because everyone loved it and there was such a hype about it, and I just couldn't get into it, and I thought I find it stupid. But then my boyfriend was like, let's give it another try, and I love it. It has become one of my favorite series, and I think the reason I didn't like it before was because I haven't experienced how an office can be. And after I've lived it, I could relate to the show, and ended up becoming a Stanley, just waiting for the day I'll get fired and I can finally go to Florida and chill. So what?
Yeah, I've never seen The Office. I have one of my favorite Flemish shows is the Flemish equivalent, Het Eiland. And when I was younger, I've always loved that show, but when I was younger, I thought, oh, this is very typical, and this is very absurd. And if these people existed in real life, they would get fired immediately. Now I realize they were actually quite soft, because real life can be a lot worse.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I mean, the thing about The Office is, though, it just shows how corporate it is. The characters itself, you kind of grow to love, and like all of them, I ended up really liking. But yeah, it just shows how corporate can have an impact on an office, I guess. I don't know. But what I also want to say, this is a bit off topic, but there will be people who say, I don't want to watch The Office because it's so offensive. It's not fucking offensive. I mean, the jokes sound offensive, but only if you don't know how to watch the show. Because it's not about, the jokes aren't homophobic or fatphobic or racist. The joke is about the racists, the homophobes, and the fatphobes and whatever. So don't tell me it's it's offensive because it makes me angry. It's a real trigger. Anyway, that was me.
Yeah, I know it is. But yes, exactly. We've had this conversation as well. We do say exactly a lot. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, we
You
realized exactly are. If we ever get to a point where we have to, well, where we want to make some merch, exactly will be printed in capitals on a hoodie.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
No, but yeah, there is a difference between shows where you can just tell that the offensive thing or the stereotypical thing towards a certain group of people is that is how the show and the writers feel, and that's something that they thought was funny. Or if they want to criticize people who do feel that way. For example, yeah, there's the Jay character on Modern Family, and I love Jay. I love me some Jay, but he's like the Republican, stereotypical old white man, and he has very conservative ideas, but he always gets proven wrong.
Yeah.
And of course, yeah, you can hear that and be like, oh my God, how dare he say that? And how dare this show put that in there? But no, the joke is on him.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now I said it again.
Oh God.
I do have some book recommendations though.
Okay, go for it.
I actually have a couple. The first one, well, hear me out because this might sound a little bit weird, but I would very much like to recommend Adam Kay's books. So Adam Kay is mostly known in Britain, I think. He used to be a surgeon for the NHS, and now he's a stand-up comedian. Yeah, I know your boyfriend loves his books as well. There was also a series recently, I think a year ago or so, based on his first book, This Is Going to Hurt. So the show has the same name. And so it's very, very interesting because it's about his job and the actual, it's kind of like Grey's Anatomy, but then reality. So all of the the challenges that the NHS has, and just what that life is like. And it really opened my eyes when it comes to just doctors, medical professionals' lives in the UK, because I think actually maybe it was with you that I had this conversation, or with your boyfriend, or with you or with him via you. I don't know, but where somebody told me in the UK, being a doctor isn't that fancy. Like, it's not as fancy as we, like, for example, in Belgium, if you tell someone, oh, he's a doctor, she's a doctor, they're a doctor, then you immediately think, oh, that means they're rich. And it's a job it's a very high, like with a bit of standing or something. Whereas in the UK, it really isn't. They usually don't earn anything.
No, because when we were at the shit show, you and I, we earned more than a junior doctor earns in the UK.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So that is something that becomes very clear when you read this book. And then also just how incredibly, of course, how massive the impact is on people's mental health when they work in the medical industry. And he ended up leaving. So he just ended up completely changing his career paths, and now he's a stand-up comedian, which many people then, of course, looked at as, why on earth would you do that? You know, he was a couple of levels away, I think, from being like a head of department or something, and he just completely stopped. So yeah, he has two books. This Is Going to Hurt, and then the second one that I read very recently, a couple of weeks ago, Undoctored, where he then talks about the start of his career as a stand-up comedian and the challenges he had there. Then there is also a fiction book called E, just the letter E, by Matt Beaumont. And this book is hysterical. This book is basically the shit show in book form. So it is just emails. All you see is emails. But you kind of get to know these characters, the people who sent these emails, and you get to know, the managers, their different jobs, and just the way they communicate with each other and the dynamic between these characters. It is so brilliant. There is, like I said, it is just the way they communicate and everything. Well, it's funny if you're not in the moment. Afterwards, it's fun to read about it because it's great. I love it so much. And then there's also a nonfiction book. Well, the Adam Kay books are also nonfiction, but then there is also a book called Working Hard, Hardly Working by Grace Beverly. I haven't actually read this, but it's been recommended to me many times. And I also found the summary, which I think just fits this topic perfectly, because it says, we all know the pressure of feeling like we should be grinding 24/7 while simultaneously being told that we should just relax and take care of ourselves. Like we somehow have to decide between success and sanity. But in today's working world, where every hobby can be a hustle and social media is the lens through which we view ourselves and others, this seemingly impossible choice couldn't be further from reality. So that is definitely one that is on my next to read list.
It sounds very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I definitely have a look. Well, I've known the Adam Kay books. Is it Adam Kay?
Yes.
Yeah. But the last one, that sounds really good. Cool. Well, this has been probably a bit of a longer one again, but you should be used to it now after our last two specials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening. Before we wrap up, we want to say a big thank you to all of you who made it to the end of the episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope that you heard something you could relate to, but maybe not too much. When I think about everything that we've just shared with you, it was all quite traumatic. Anyway, we'll be back next week with another episode on our corporate theme.
Well, we'll be back in 2 weeks, but yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, no.
But yeah, so the best part is we also would love to hear from you. We know that each one of you has their own unique experiences and stories to share. So don't be shy and message us on Instagram at We Are Millennial Musings, and you can share your own musings with us. And also, we would really love and appreciate if you could give us a follow here on Spotify, and if you maybe could rate our show, because it really helps us push this podcast out there into the world.
Yeah, but we'll only rate if you want to give it 5 stars. Otherwise, don't rate.
Oh, yeah.
So until, 2 weeks from now, stay curious, and we want to hear from you. Keep those stories coming. Bye.
Bye. Bye, bye, bye.